I'm Matt Armstrong, a data security architect at Jamf.
And I'm Hiroshi Takeuchi, an information security engineer here at Jamf.
And we'll be talking about our security program here at Jamf and what we're doing to protect our customers. $6 trillion, that's what Cybersecurity Ventures projects the total cost of cybercrime to be when 2021 finishes up. That number is expected to grow to 10.5 trillion by 2025, and that $4.5 trillion growth represents the greatest transfer of economic wealth in history. If measured as a country, those numbers would represent the third largest country by GDP.
There has been an increase in attacks targeting enterprise solutions, highlighted by a few major compromises this year. The security industry has seen an overall trend in SaaS solutions being a major target of supply chain attacks, with the goal of achieving command and control over their targeted victims.
So what is a supply chain attack? It's defined as a supply chain attack or value chain or third-party attack, and it occurs when someone infiltrates your system through an outside partner or provider with access to your systems and data. This has dramatically changed the attack surface of the typical enterprise in the past few years, with more suppliers and service providers touching sensitive data than ever before. Jamf fits that bill. In Anchor's 2021 Supply Chain Security Report, they surveyed 401 companies. Of those 401 companies, only 36% had not been affected by a supply chain attack in the last 12 months. Conversely, 12% had been significantly impacted by a supply chain attack. These stats and the attention given to supply chain attacks in both the media and by cybercrime organizations has highlighted the fact our industry and company are targets. So Hiro, what are we doing?
Here at Jamf, we are putting a great amount of focus on product security, making sure that we catch as many bugs prior to shipping a new version of each of our products. With static and dynamic code analysis, external pen testing, and other processes in place, we're catching more things than ever before. We're continuously cleaning up existing vulnerabilities and consistently growing and improving our tooling and our team. But you and I know, both, that we are not perfect. So let me ask you, if a customer or a researcher finds a vulnerability in one of our products, what should we do?
Submit it through our bug bounty program. We're running this program on BugCrowd and rewarding points and cash to those that discover and report vulnerabilities in our products. We want to engage the security community to discover and fix these issues and provide the safest and most secure products we possibly can. According to Verizon's DBIR report, about 90% of vulnerabilities are discovered and reported by security researchers. And we want to leverage and engage this community to improve our products. We want to make sure all of our submissions and security incidents and issues are directed to the right people in a timely manner. So to help this, if for some reason you're unable to go through our bug bounty program, please contact security@jamf.com. We don't want those issues going through our typical support channels. We want them reported and disclosed to our security team directly.
Well, let's talk about incident response. What is incident response? In information security, we can define incident response as a term used to describe the process an organization uses to handle cyber attacks or breaches, with the primary goal to minimize the damage, cost, and recovery time, ensuring to minimize the damage to the company's reputation and operation. At Jamf, we have a very effective and evolving incident response plan in place. I'm almost certain that some of you have already worked with the team to address some issues. Our goal is to minimize the risk, damage of an incident for you, our customers, or us in Jamf.
For our incident response program, we use the pie-curl method. So first step is being prepared, and a couple cheesy sports puns. Prepare today for success tomorrow. Plan, prepare, perform. And then one from our industry: good preparation takes longer than the delivery. In cybersecurity, the question isn't if, but when an incident will happen. For that, we need to be prepared, and we want to be able to execute having a plan in place. Hero, once we've identified an issue, what are we doing?
Well, there's a saying that says, you cannot fix what you cannot see. We've spent a lot of time and money implementing tooling and process that automates discovery and helps our teams evaluate, gather, and categorize logs to effectively identify incidents as they occur. Starting with a high rate of false positives and tuning down all those alerts as we learn to better leverage the data and systems relationships.
Once we've identified an issue or an event, our next priority is to contain it. We want to minimize the impact and risk to our systems and you. There are a lot of decisions to be made in this step. And it starts with quantifying the risk. So an incident happens, we identify it, then we're working to identify what the risk is. Are they able to move laterally? Are they gaining access to systems? Are they able to execute command and control attacks? What are the impacts to operations? And most importantly, what are the impacts to you, our customers? Hero, once we've contained it, how are we killing these things off?
Well, the next step would be called the eradication. Once the issue is contained and the attack has been stopped, the next step is to shore all our defenses to avoid another attack against the identified vulnerability. As part of this eradication process, we need to ensure that we have all the affected systems cleaned and brought back to normal operation standards, and ensuring that measures have been taken to protect this from future vulnerabilities like the one that we just found during this incident.
And once we've stopped the attack in its place, we want to make sure this doesn't happen again. So we're doing our root cause analysis, understanding how the attack originated, what was compromised, and how we remediate and resolve the issue. To do this, we need to understand the risk posed to customers and Jamf at large to make an informed decision. If there's a great risk, we may need to take immediate action. That could take the form of a cloud configuration or a control. If that's something we feel we need to do, first step is to understand what the feature is in product that's being exploited and is vulnerable to an attack. From there, we go through and understand how many customers are using it, what that click rate is, and how valuable overall that feature is to our customers. If it's something that we think won't have a great impact on customers, and the risk, again, is high, it's a critical vulnerability for us, we may make that change to put in a control in cloud and break our product. We don't make that decision lightly, but given we're under attack and there is a risk to you, we want to be mindful and minimize that risk. More common is a vulnerability is identified and we get to working with our product and engineering teams quickly so that we can either put out a hot fix or get that PI included in the next cycle to get that to you as quickly as possible. So with every incident, we're trying to use it as a learning opportunity. We use Amazon's correction of error process to go back through 5 whys and understand the timeline and details of how the incident was executed and how we can get better. Some of the questions we're asking: is this something we've seen before? Is this something we should have been prepared for? How can we prevent this activity from occurring in the future? Are we able to build our posture up to eliminate a reoccurrence? Or is this something a risk that we have to live with? And if it is, then how do we automate responses to expedite containment and eradication? And then finally, to lead back into being prepared, how do we document and develop playbooks so that the team can be better prepared to handle this the next time it happens? All of that's happening, within a week of or two of the incident. And then, Hero, how are we communicating with customers when we have an incident that occurs?
Here at Jamf, communication is all about transparency with our customers. But when it comes to security incidents, we want to make sure that what we communicate to you is precise, truthful, and relevant. The communications take time to come up with, and they have to be reviewed prior to being released. But know that we strive to deliver the best to you, our customers.
And while we've always prided ourselves on transparency with our customers, when it comes to security, it comes at a cost. So when PIs are published or CVEs are published for our products and they're vague, there's a reason behind that. It's because we don't want to give a would-be attacker a playbook or instruction manual on how to exploit us. Understand this can be frustrating, but we are trying to minimize the risk to you and give customers who are running premium cloud or on-prem time to go through their change management processes and get Jamf up to a place where that exploit is no longer exploitable. We also have our cloud who does a GA, a week or two behind the release of a version. So we're trying to give them time to mass upgrade and remove that risk from our product. So that's a little bit about what we're doing for our product and for our customers. Hero, what are we doing internally?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Here at Jamf, we see our own fair share of nefarious activity. Let's see some examples. What we're seeing lines up with the industry at large, where an organization sees between 3.5 to 150,000 attacks a year. This year, we've seen a drastic rise in brute force attacks, often seeing multiple distinct attacks each week, highlighting the chart here. The large spikes in failed logins and an indicative of an integration gone wrong or somebody trying to break in is evident. What are we doing about this, Matt?
So at Jamf, we're using password policies, MFA, and Wandera's Zero Trust is rolling out. So we're taking that posture and trying to prevent brute force attacks and credentials from being compromised that would give access to our systems. The other thing, and you'll see some changes coming in our product, are around token authentication, where many of our newer APIs and products do not support basic authentication and the use of credentials through APIs. This is something that we want to bring to the classic API and give you an option to be more secure. The other thing that we're doing to help against brute force and denial of service attempts is looking at rate limits. So with the 1033 release, you'll see the Jamf Pro API have a rate limit on the token generation of 100 per minute. We're also looking at this same sort of limiting for the login page where basic credentials are used, for enrollment, again, where basic credentials are used, and looking at taking that classic API, giving it a token authentication mechanism, and limiting that token generation, and basically just limiting the number of attempts that could be automated and in an attempt to compromise credentials. So that's a little bit about what we're doing from a system side. Hero, how are we protecting our devices?
In this graph from Jamf Protect, we can see activities identified for the last 30 days. If you notice, there's a spike in gatekeeper events at the end of August. What can you tell me about that, Matt?
So digging in, that spike correlates with an increased activity in blocked malware. Doing our due diligence and analysis, we identified that our threat intel team was deploying malware on production, so testing in production. But in all seriousness, they're not blowing up and detonating malware in production. They're testing their new analytics and making sure that they capture and prevent malware from executing on the devices with copied hash files. So not a risk to Jamf, but them doing their due diligence to make us and you safer.
I guess one benefit of working for Jamf is that we get to run all these tools. We have Protect, Command Reporter, both of them on a good chunk of our devices. On average, Compliance Reporter is blocking about 7,000 events a day. So Matt, tell me about Jamf's posture.
Unlike mine, Jamf's posture has gotten better during the pandemic, and we continue to focus on improving that posture. Our product security team is focused on finding issues early with static analysis and testing, attaching sufficient risk information to every vulnerability so dev teams and product management know how to prioritize work, and engaging with researchers through bug crowd to resolve issues quickly as they're identified. We're looking at improving our product and eliminating all vulnerabilities. Our IR process is under a constant revisionment where we take what we learn from a given scenario, apply it, and are more prepared for the next time. Internally, we continue to utilize our tools and refine those, looking to automate response and mitigate the risk against our organization and ultimately you, our customers. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Hope to see you at JNUC next year live.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day and enjoy JNUC 2021. See you.